Welcome back to another edition of the Mainframe here on BlauTech.com, and this week we're talking to Paul Blau about physical security. And this is the actual physical part where you have cables and things you plug in your computer, and
Right.
and that's kind of the very first front line of security for your computer, Paul. So that's what it is that we want people to know about and to think about, and actually go and investigate on your computers right away. And that is what you're plugging into it, the stuff that's physically going in and out of it. Now, I know we spent a lot of time talking about the software and the virus protection, all that kind of stuff. And we just sometimes ignore the fact that we're plugging stuff into our computers that we don't even know what we're plugging into. I mean, I know that there was recently a survey where, or someone did an undercover thing where they dropped a flash drive on the ground in the parking lot to see how many people would pick it up and plug it in the computer. And it was amazing. It was like 70% of the people picked it up, plugged it in to see what was on it. And those kind of things are an absolute no-no, right?
Absolutely, especially if you have sensitive data. You know, if you've got information that is secure, financial information from a formula that maybe you have, some proprietary research development information, whatever that may be, you want to make sure that that stays protected, and so you don't want to introduce anything into your environment that's not something that you are aware of and you're sure is okay. It's also more than that. It's just considering the physical environment of how your computers are laid out. Simple things like where the screens are laid out. If you've got confidential information, you want to make sure your screens are positioned. If you have customers or people walking in, that they can't just look at your screens and see what's going on. This is really important in like a doctor's office, but not necessarily just limited to a doctor's office. But in a doctor's office where they're very sensitive about issues like HIPAA security and patient confidentiality. And, I really don't want you knowing exactly what's going on with my health if you happen to walk in after me. Maybe there's something there that is private and I just don't want everybody knowing about it. And so if you walked in after me and the screen's there visible, you might still see what's going on and be able to get that information. So you want to consider the physical location of the equipment. And there's some ways that you can secure that. One is there's things like a filter that you can put on called a privacy filter. It's a little sheet of plastic that you can put onto virtually any monitor. You have to be looking straight ahead to be able to see anything. So if I'm looking off a little bit to the side, which is typically the situation if I'm trying to kind of eavesdrop on you, I can't see anything. It's just all blurred out. If I'm looking right at the perfect angle, I can see that. You'll see these a lot of times in very small doctors' offices where they just can't physically redesign their whole office environment to make sure that they maintain that physical security element there of not being able to see things.
Or the old-fashioned shutters. I mean, they used to have them where they had a little kind of shutter on the side and the top that kept people, and they still make those.
Right.
So that's one way to kind of protect it. And I'm assuming that kind of falls under the HIPAA laws as well.
It does.
They're required to make sure that they don't show the screen with your information on it.
Right. It could be considered a violation if somebody sees information related to your patient information that's not supposed to. And so, there's some common sense that's built into the law. So we don't want doctors to be completely paranoid and unable to use their technology, but we want them to be using as much common sense as possible and trying to make sure that we eliminate any chance of accidental exposure.
All right. Let's talk about the physical stuff as we kind of alluded to at the very beginning, things you plug into your computer. Now, as computers begin to progress, the ability to plug things into them are beginning to decrease, which is good.
Right.
Things like an Apple iPad or an iPhone, they just don't have plugs that you can plug external things into them, but you can get around that.
Right.
So we don't want people to think they're completely safe just because they're using an iPad. You can plug stuff into it and get access to things, right?
Right. Well, and nowadays it's not so much that we plug it in as we connect to it. And so it's still the same issue. It's just now done through wireless or Bluetooth or near field, which is the new thing that just came out with the new Apple products.
Yeah.
So these technologies are still a way of physically connecting your device to another device. And so you still have to be in control of that device, still know what you're plugging in and what vulnerabilities that you're creating in relationship to that. So,
and a lot of the stuff happens without you even knowing it. I know that my camera that we're using here to shoot this video on has the near field radio receiver. So when you get my phone and you actually touch it to the camera or get it within X amount of inches, it automatically connects to the phone without me even knowing it.
Right, yeah. And so a lot of it becomes very transparent to the end user. And so we're connecting devices without even necessarily realizing it. And so we believe, we trust, we think that all of this is being done with absolute perfect security. But but that's not necessarily the case because people are involved in it, and they can have just not thought through the security elements of that particular connection,
Right.
and it can create a vulnerability. So this is where it's really important to do the research and to know if there's updates to the software that connects these devices together, and just to kind of be aware of it. And again, if you're in a highly secure environment, the best policy is one of exception. So what we'll do is we connect to nothing unless we prove that it's a business necessity or and that it is secure. So.
All right. So what peripherals are fairly secure?
Fairly secure.
I use the fairly because nothing is foolproof.
No.
But I mean, which ones are can we feel kind of safe connecting to our computer?
Printers are relatively safe typically. In some exceptions would be like a printer that has a hard drive inside of it can retain information, and so can still be an exposure issue potentially. But for the most part, wireless printers are relatively safe. I don't do a whole lot of thought, although some security experts are very concerned about hacking into a printer. But if you do gain wireless access to a printer, really, what have you gained?
What are you getting?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of my thought. So maybe it is possible, but the risk element, that the impact of the risk as they would do the analysis, is very low.
Now, what about routers and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, the very serious risks at that particular point. And this particular comes into play like if you're in a hotel or a Starbucks or wherever where there's free Wi-Fi, understand that Wi-Fi is going through an internet device, and that internet device then knows the history of your browsing and what you're doing, and is tracking that information. And potentially, if that device was infected, then it can be used as a gateway to infect your device. So this is where we have to be very, very secure. It's why we still have to have antivirus and some firewall capabilities right on the local PC, not just trusting that whoever it is that you're connecting to has done a good job, because they probably haven't. I mean, oftentimes these are done at restaurants or coffee shops, things like that. That really, outside of like a major chain, maybe they've got the security. But you say that, and Home Depot, Target, it's just like every day there's a new breach from one of these gigantic companies that you would have thought would have had the very best of security protocols in place. Interestingly, though, even in those cases, oftentimes it's because they've connected to something. The Target breach came in through an air conditioning subcontractor, and it was done through a...
And was he even aware of it?
He was not aware of it. No, he had gotten hacked, and they used his system to gain access to all the Target stores. And so what happened is that they had these smart air conditioners, because we're in the world of everything being connected. And so these smart air conditioners are internet aware, and they're communicating back and forth, and that's great because it tells you when the filter needs to be replaced, if there's any kind of an error, problems about to happen. I mean, it makes great sense. But the problem with that is that in a connected world, not only are you sending information out, but you're getting information in. Somebody hacked into these systems, gained access to all of Target, and then you, through the air conditioning control system, gained access to the point of sale.
Well, don't freak out. Your air conditioner is probably not going to take over your house or your computer
Not
network.
just yet.
Not yet. It's coming. But so we need to make sure that we're careful about wireless routers. Printers are fairly safe. In the safe and the not safe column, what else is fairly safe?
Well, anything needs to be given consideration. So you're going to weigh it depending on what you're working with. I mean, in very like a CD-ROM or something like that, those types of peripherals are typically going to be relatively safe, except for the media that they'll bring into it. So like USB drives and hard drives and things like that. If you know them, you've purchased them, that type of situation, they're probably going to be safe. If it's your buddies or your friend or somebody who says, "Hey, I just want to plug this in and print something out," sometimes you just have to say, "No, you can't do that. I can't allow you to do that. Email it to me and let it go through email scrubbing and filtering so that I can evaluate it." The other thing I think is really important when it comes to physical security is to really think about the physical environment. And so we do things here, for instance, like in our company, we're installing man traps. And what a man trap is you'll be able to enter into our main door, and then you'll immediately find another secured and locked door. And that door can't be opened unless you have a control device. In our case, it's a fob. just a little piece of plastic that you run up against a reader, and that identifies that you're an authorized person, and you can gain access in that way. That technology used to be really, really expensive, only for really big companies. You'd see it on James Bond, that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's really cheap now, very easy to implement, and so even the smallest of businesses can put in that type of technology, where we can have not only the security that that secondary door is locked and only people that have authorization can get through it, but that we also have a record of who has gone through it.
Right. Now, we're running out of time, but we do want to mention one other thing before we're done, and that is that you need to make sure that all this stuff that comes in out of your business is not accessible to the public. I've been into a lot of businesses that have equipment rooms where their routers, their servers, all that kind of stuff, the doors are standing wide open.
Right.
Anyone can walk in, plug something in.
Right.
In the back, and nobody will even know it. Those kind of rooms really need to be secured.
Yeah, and so there's a couple ways of doing that. One is if you've got a good vented, air-conditioned electrical closet where a telephone system is, and maybe some air conditioning subsystems or things like that. That's a great location to put this type of equipment into. If you don't,
and lock the door.
Yeah. Make sure you have ventilation though, because this equipment all generates heat, and we've had situations where people locked the door, did something nice and secure, but forgot about the ventilation, and then everything overheated and kind of melts down, and that's not good. But you can also use devices, what we call racks, and there's wall-mounted racks, and there are freestanding racks, which basically will allow you to create a portable electronic closet that can be locked and secured anywhere in your building.
Right. Front and back doors that swing closed.
Exactly.
That still allow ventilation in, but don't allow you to plug anything into it or whatever. So,
exactly.
I mean, that is something, and I see that a lot. So if your business out there has routers and servers or whatever, and you're just leaving the door wide open, that's one of the very first things that we want to encourage people to do is get that secure.
And even if you're not focused on the I think somebody's going to hack into my system and steal stuff from me, just think about it from this standpoint: is that system is very important to you, and what you can do if you're not careful is somebody can get their foot wrapped up in a cable, or they can turn something off or kick something. We've had lots of situations where a cleanup crew accidentally would vacuum up a cable and rip the cable to pieces, and then now something's not working, and that can cause a huge business disruption. And in many cases, if your servers are down, you really can't do business.
And the last thing is just protect your devices. If you have a laptop that has a sensitive customer or company information on it, don't just leave it sitting on the restaurant table at the mall while you go shopping. If you turn your back for a minute, people can grab it, take it with them, and everything on there then becomes complete public knowledge. And a lot of people grab these things and then sell that information.
Absolutely. Yeah, the information is far more valuable than the laptop or the cell phone or the iPad.
Yeah. So just protect your stuff. And if you're not really sure what to do about physical security, the folks here at Blautech will be glad to give you an analysis that is absolutely free of your business and how to get it more secure, and then give you some steps that you can undertake to make sure that you're not only secure when it comes to software and that kind of thing, but you're also secure with all the physical things that you need to be taken care of. Now, of course, you can find more information about the services that Blautech offers just by going to the website. You'll find it right here on the screen, www.blautech.com. And Paul, thanks for being our guest again today, and thanks for watching The Mainframe on Blautech.com.